The Pandora Papers have exposed secret financial accounts of billionaires, celebrities, politicians, and some 35 current or former heads of state. Some of them are starting to respond to those allegations of offshore tax havens, either outright denying them or saying they'll launch investigations of their own. The Pandora Papers investigation has lifted a lid on offshore tax havens and the people using them. Well, our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert's here to share his perspective on all of this. First of all, Doug, what's really interesting in these Pandora Papers is really for the first time we're seeing the United States emerging as a financial tax haven.
Yeah, to be sure, Judy, the United States had already emerged. There was a little bit of the tip of the iceberg there. And how had it emerged before? We've talked about the state of Delaware in the United States as being a tax haven, but it's often been sort of that rogue offshore haven when in past instances of these leaks, when we had in 2016 the Panama Papers, we had the offshore leaks before that. In all the other leaks, sometimes Delaware would come up. There'd be a few trusts with some wealth stashed away in Delaware, and everyone would always say, why Delaware? Mm-hmm. Well, now, yes, there is a whole host of other states that are emerging as not just attractive places to park your wealth, but very attractive. There were 200 U.S. trusts mentioned in these current batch of Pandora Papers. And we're talking, 12 million documents, the biggest sort of leak ever. And of those, South Dakota, it's not even offshore last time I checked. You probably know, but it's landlocked, right? South Dakota. But it has emerged. 81 of those 200 U.S.-based trusts were all in South Dakota. There were other states, such as Nevada, such as Texas, such as Florida. And yes, Delaware is still on that list. Even New York State is there. But South Dakota, for some reason, and what is that reason? It's because it offers, not just in the U.S., but some of the world's most powerful protections right now against creditors, against people looking for you to pay your taxes, and against anyone with prying eyes. So a lot of savvier investors are seeing, when they have a lot of wealth, that already in past papers there have been crackdowns, more restrictive laws passed in places like Panama, in places like Switzerland, in places like Belize, the British Virgin Islands. All of these places still exist as tax havens. It's just a little more difficult now. So you have this game of whack-a-mole, Jeannie. You thump down one thing popping up, and then something else pops up in another place. South Dakota is now the place popping up as the new attractive tax haven because they haven't gotten to it yet. The regulators haven't said, South Dakota, we should start tightening up there as well.
So, as you mentioned, this is the largest leak of this kind that we have seen yet. The big question is anything changing since these revelations, or will anything change?
Yeah, anything's a big word. Has anything changed? Yes. As I just said, in the wake of each of these other leaks, whether we're talking the Paradise Papers, the Panama Papers, the offshore leaks, there have been a whole, the names. We all know these names. Each time you have finance ministers, you have G20 leaders afterwards coming together, taking the moral high ground, getting all high-minded, saying, now is the time. We are going to abolish tax havens. And yes, there is some tightening of the screws afterwards. It does become a little bit harder, less secrecy, more transparency, or at least avowals thereof. The problem is this. Tax havens, it depends on their cooperation. Are they still going to be opaque? Or are they actually going to cooperate? They're cooperating more in some places, but not all. And like I said, it's a game of displacement. When one gets more restrictive, there always seems to be another place. We're talking about the world's wealthiest and most powerful people. The people who are most benefiting from these offshore and tax havens are also the people, lo and behold, who are the ones who are supposed to tighten them up and make them more restrictive. A slight conflict of interest there, you might see. So while, yes, progress has been made and more than just lip service has been paid to tightening up tax havens, you're not going to get there, right? In the end, even if you have a lot of progress, these are the wealthiest people in the world. Money will always find a place to park itself, and it will find a place to park itself beyond prying eyes. So it doesn't mean I'm totally pessimistic, but it does mean if you're expecting the Pandora Papers, no matter how big a motherlode of documents this is, to really be the root and branch reform of the tax haven system across the world, it won't be that, but it will lead perhaps to a further tightening of the screws. We're already seeing talk of that.
Doug, thanks for that. France 24's Doug Herbert.